placed 12,000 kilometers away in Arizona. And that fodder is shipped and that's brought waste in agriculture and particularly in Pakistan's agriculture's infrastructure. But if we don't bring quality investment plans to them, offer with a 6-digit salary, but who doesn't know how to drive. So when your driver doesn't know how to drive, he will tell you that was a good, strong case for ecological reparations against all those donors that funded that project. Can you believe the natural ways of the water?
Hello and welcome to InferTalks, a podcast where I put you in the room with some of the biggest thought leaders from around the world. Joining me today for this conversation is a trained economist, agri-entrepreneur, and a former bureaucrat, Mr. Aijaz Nizamani. Mr. Aijaz Nizamani is also a founder of Rural Asia Enterprise Services. Mr. Aijaz, welcome to InferTalks.
My pleasure.
Mr. Aijaz, before we start our conversation, just a disclaimer. Since we both happen to share the same surname, let's get the record straight. We don't happen to be immediately related, do we?
Yes, that's true.
Let's go ahead and start our conversation. And you're someone who's writing very extensively off lately about food security issues, about agri investments. Let me go ahead and ask you this very first important question. You raised valid concerns about agri investments. Let me ask you, why has the agriculture sector or the agricultural sector itself has really failed to attract investments at all?
Yes, you are right. It has failed to attract investments not only in Pakistan, but in wider developing world, what I call non-OECD world. And I think perhaps the problem lies with the way training education, particularly corporate-led training education model, which in a way, rightly or wrongly, roots the world. I think that has fundamental weaknesses as far as reaching out rural entrepreneurs, farmers, and particularly in developing countries. So I think that is the key, and that is very, very important where challenge lies, and also one needs to come up with solution that really works for everyone, including farmers and investors.
And so what are some of the basic causes that you think have, led to failure in this area in the very first place?
Well, the basic causes to me is, it again comes back to knowledge, understanding, and data. So again, if I were to divide the world's agriculture, I would divide it into rich world agriculture, which is OECD, mainly rich countries, economies. And since macroeconomies in those societies are, they have favorable terms for farmers, and there are significant fiscal transfers from state to the farmers. So in that part of the society, largely Northern Hemisphere, there is a lot of data. Government knows what is happening. Government is helping farmers, pure fiscal transfer. So when government transfers money to farmers, of course, they require data. But well, the other part of the world, which is the developing world, there the model is more and more, since 1960s, the industrialization model. And there lies the challenge. So again, the issue is, again, I would say, the knowledge, understanding, and data. Since we don't know what to ask, so that is really the constraining part, which needs to be challenged. And like 40 years ago, world thought that they have found microfinance as a way to help the world, particularly the agriculture. And would you trust me that I was the one who said even a quarter century ago to my friends over here that it's not going to work. and now even mainstream research says it doesn't work. So charity doesn't work. We need to help markets, to help farmers and agriculture in developing world.
When you say it doesn't work, would you really expand or throw some light and give some example? Speaking of Pakistan itself.
Yes, it's both Pakistan and wider world. Even for Pakistan, like some 6 months back, I believe there was a boat tragedy in Greek waters where I think over 600 people died, and many of them were youth, and they were youth from rural areas of Pakistan. So this is a very sad reminder and example when it doesn't work. So it really reflects the desperation of youth that they want to leave their society, the country, and even in societies like India, Indian farmers they produce food for 1.5 billion Indians, and also a fair amount of world's African markets. They rely on Indian food, but even millions of Indian rural poor, they go hungry. Though India has a much better record serving rural population compared to Pakistan, but it's still. I mean, you will find many situations where farmers, while producing food, they can't feed themselves.
And now let's speak of food insecurity itself. We see a lot of policymakers, heads of governments, all people in important positions actually talk about it. And even heads of corporate firms, under the garb of, or perhaps if I may say, under the auspices of corporate social responsibility often alluded to it. But let me ask, what exactly is perhaps the most pressing, urgent threat when we speak of food security?
The most urgent pressing problem is obviously, I mean, how to facilitate efficient and sustainable investment, because this is not an issue that can be solved, what I would say, through corporate social responsibility. We need proper investment, but and even I would say farmers, if you understand their market, if you understand that they don't need charity, they need a business model that works for them. And I do not want to market myself, but my mission is to bring what I call enabling capitalism, rural businesses and agriculture in developing world. And I think that's doable, that's possible. And particularly in this age of tech, in this age of satellite-based data, it is possible. But you need to connect the dots properly, identify opportunities, identify risks. So make it truly knowledge-based. I think it can work. So the biggest challenge is how to bring sustainable investments to rural areas, and particularly how to make it work, what I call at retail level, not for land grabs, but how to make it work at retail level. I mean, in this age, when some people like Mr. Elon Musk, he's talking about what he says, interplanetary civilizations. I think, come on, we have got so many problems here on Earth to solve before we go what he calls insurance plan. So I think technology is there. All we need is connecting dots, better vision, enabling policies. It can work for farmers and investors.
Mr. Aijaz, you're basically referring to systems and processes, but let me ask you, what about other pressing issues such as climate change, different kind of diseases or threats that can perhaps also threaten the health of crops itself, or other forms of threats that can sort of make it more pose a significant amount of risk to the food baskets, not just in Pakistan but also around the world.
I mean, there is no denying of the fact that it is the richer countries and the rich people in richer countries who have almost made the world unlivable for poor people. I mean, can you believe people in the northern areas of Pakistan who have got their villages just beneath the glaciers, and now those glaciers not only are melting, but there are these what is called Glof glacial lake burst out for flooding. So now these people who were living in these villages for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years, and now because of this global warming and heating of the world, now those glaciers are literally being unleashed on these poor people. It's not only loss of their livelihoods, but even their survival. Now all this needs to be stopped. And I think the expectation lies with the conscientious people in the rich world. They are coming in large number, forcing their politicians, forcing their business leaders. Let's hope common sense prevail and we get policies that really work for us, for poor and sustainable livelihoods. But it's an uphill task. It is an uphill task, particularly when we know that hundreds of billions of dollars subsidies are being pumped into fossil fuels. It's not an easy battle, but I think world has to come up solution. I believe.
Now, let's speak about one of the criticisms that you've actually leveled against the government that has left the office, when it had actually presented the budget, especially for the agricultural sector, and your criticism was that the government had actually decided to replace 50,000 diesel and electric run tube wells with solar powered tube wells all across Pakistan. You criticize the move. Can I really ask you, what is your criticism all about?
Yes, I mean, government has come up with what they call solarization of irrigation tube wells, and something like 50,000 tube wells. That's okay in a way, but to me, it shows the larger issue. The larger issue is that, I mean, a country like Pakistan, it's basically an irrigation economy. Okay, I mean, if we borrow from Mr. Clinton phrase, if US was economy stupid, we in Pakistan should be irrigation stupid. So the whole challenge is how to invest, how to bring investment in Pakistan's water sector, and coming up with a solution that solarizes 50,000 tube wells. The problem, though it will certainly help farmers in Punjab, but the problem I'm having with this solution is that this thinking that this fresh water, groundwater is an inexhaustible resource, and all government want to do is just help people to extract it as much as they can. Certainly, it will help to some extent to the farmers in Punjab, but like myself in the southern province of Sindh, where 80% of the groundwater is saline, what I'm advocating, this one size fits all solution, is not going to work, and there should have been some realistic ground-based policy mechanism which should have allowed investment in surface water, particularly water course lining in Sindh provinces, which is the southernmost province. That would have helped, I think, many more farmers than just individual farmers on a single tube well. So that was my criticism.
And what about other provinces such as Balochistan? Have you
Well. In Balochistan, where there is they almost entirely rely on Kare's water, which is underground water. I mean, our policy since last, I believe, 3-4 decades have been like a flat grid electricity rate. So it means how much water you draw, irrespective of that, you would get a flat. So in a way, our policies have been quite horrendous as far as environmental capital like fresh water is concerned.
Let me ask you about your suggestion about this. Perhaps I must admit and say it's very ambitious that you're proposing water conservation investment. You are imploring the government to invite private sector investments, something I don't know which has been done in the past or not, to have the Bela dam level water levels level availability for Kharif and Rabi crop seasons. You do suggest, bringing about a change of laws to include local farmers in such private investments as well. Why are you so sure about this move, and why do you think it would really work in the first place?
Well, to me, societies like Pakistan, where your politics is a chaotic, let's not call it corrupt, let's call it chaotic. So I think there, first you have to look what I call professional leadership, not political leadership. So politicians have got too much on their plate. So let's not expect much from them. What I mean to say, it's the farmers, their own professional leadership, that they have to come up with solutions, including the solution to bring investment again into the water sector. Farmers should have their own companies. And by the way, the government of Pakistan in late 90s, 1997, 98, they borrowed from a World Bank project which had a conditionality of irrigation reforms, and they formed PIDAs, Provincial Irrigation and Drainage Authorities. By the way, that law is there. That law is there, and that law has this provision. In fact, that law required a phasing out of irrigation and water subsidies from Pakistan's agriculture, I think, over a period of 10 years. That statutory requirement is there, but it's just lying there in their government files. So law requires that, and more importantly, Pakistan's fiscal position is so bad when 80 to 85% of your revenue goes for debt servicing. I mean, what else you have got? So obviously you have got an aging irrigation infrastructure. So in order to attract investments, the lead has to be taken. What I again say, professional leadership of farmers rather than waiting for politicians or government. This is my line, and I think the sooner the farmers realize this, the better. But I've found I've got many friends. They are farmers. Myself, I'm a tiny scale farmer, and may I say that at times I feel my farmer friends are quite hopeless. So maybe we have to approach the industrialists of Pakistan to rescue the Pakistan's agriculture.
And who else do you think, perhaps the government should actually approach in terms of, attracting such investments, apart from, the rich Pakistanis?
Well, if Pakistani policymakers and Pakistani, I would say, bureaucracy had some capacity, I mean, you would be surprised to know that a Saudi dairy company's cow's fodder is raised 12,000 kilometers away in Arizona. And that fodder is shipped, and that's brought. So 12,000 kilometers. Can you imagine the carbon footprint, the cost of doing business? Don't you think Saudis and the Gulf investors would be interested to invest in agriculture, and particularly in Pakistan's agriculture infrastructure? But if we don't bring quality investment plans to them, so that is why they are making these investments in North America, in America, in Canada. So I think it is in their interest. I wrote, I believe, in Dawn, attracting Gulf investments much earlier than this SICF concept. So I think we have to be creative as a nation, and policymakers have to realize that rather than borrowing what I call unproductive loans over the last 4 or 5 decades, there's no way other than bringing private sector investment. And I would again say the lead has to be taken by farmers rather than allowing bureaucracy to play with the fate of Pakistan's agriculture.
I'll come to that question about the bureaucracy itself, but let me ask you, in what form are you expecting such foreign investment to come in? I mean, is it in form of sovereign wealth funds? Is it in form of hard cash? How exactly are you expecting this to come?
Well, I mean, in our own region, right, so close to us, these Gulf sovereign wealth funds, they have got over $3.5 trillion with them. I know it's not going to be easy money, I know. But since we have got very good friendly and foreign relations with them, I think we can make a better case. We can, provided we have good plans. And that is where we lack. I mean, like this year in January, there was Geneva conference as to help us after we suffered devastating rains last year. And you would be surprised to know the pledges that international community made for Pakistan were more than what Pakistan was requiring for. But at the end of the day, they require investable, defendable plans, and that is where we lack. So I think Pakistan can make a good case. It's a huge country. It's a good market. It has a youth bulk. So all we need is a vision and enabling policies, and I think they can attract international investment if they are smart enough and sophisticated enough.
And now let's speak about SIFC since you made a mention of it. You've actually, advised a word of caution to them against designing interventions which are coming either from, serving bureaucrats or either coming from, urban-based policymakers. And on farming interventions, you actually say that such advice should actually be coming from competent and bold sector advisors from within the farming community. Why are you so anxious about, any intervention or any advice coming either from bureaucrats or say from, urban-based policymakers who perhaps worked on issues for decades?
No, I mean, I'm not saying that the expertise just simply lies with the farmers. That is not the point. The point is that SIFC is a very good body, and given the capacity of a civilian bureaucracy, I think it's a good move. The pitfall that it needs to avoid, again, I say it needs to have courageous and competent advisors. You know what happens when people get at times in societies like ours, when they get too good salaries, perhaps they become hostage to those emoluments. What I mean to say that those advisors, they have to be bold and courageous, and they have to extend the advice which is needed, not which is wanted. So if SICF ensures they have competent advisors, they identify good projects. I'm not saying that all farmers should identify the projects. Sector experts, they can also identify good projects. So what I mean to say that, because some people are simply writing off the SICF, I'm saying that is not the case. SICF is an out-of-box solution. It can work, provided it avoids the pitfalls. That's the whole point.
Now let's speak about the province of Sindh itself, and you've actually written about the system of drainage itself. And I'm sure that it's not important to make a re-mention of this, but we've had 18th Amendment for more than a decade, and the provincial government has had that as its very subject to take care of the drainage issue itself. Why do you think the government was, so devoid of taking the corrective measures when the province of Sindh itself and Pakistan itself was actually hit with recurring cycles of floods in the past 1 decade?
Well, there is no denying of the impact of climate change, both in the north of Pakistan and in the extreme south of Pakistan. And the reality is that Pakistan has got over 40 million acres of irrigated land. 40 million acres of irrigated land. That's more than entire Africa, including Egypt and Sudan. As far as the province of Sindh is concerned, it is the southernmost province. So whether we like it or not, the drainage the drainage, and particularly the surface drainage, the rainwater. We like it or not, the drainage of Punjab, the drainage of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the drainage of Balochistan, as well as hill torrents, they have to pass through Sindh and going into the Arabian Sea or run of Kutch. You know what actually we have done over the past few decades? I mean, let me give you one example. One was Left Bank Outfall Drain Project, LBOD. We borrowed $1 billion from international lenders led by World Bank 40 years ago for this project. I call LBOD worse than useless. Was this project just simply useless? We would have been lucky. But this project actually has opened up the waterways for sea to come into the lands and homes of people in the district of Badin, where you belong to. And can you believe that we borrowed $1 billion for this kind of project? I mean, had Pakistan's civil society been strong enough, I think there was a good, strong case for ecological reparations against all those donors that funded that project. Can you believe the natural ways of the water were literally blocked? And I put this question to the topmost irrigation expert of the province. I said to him that why they have done this. Can you believe his response was that perhaps India would have objected because this was a drainage effluent and polluted water. And my question to him was that what about the Indian East Punjab's drainage water? Where would it go from? He said that would pass through Pakistan. I said to him, can you stop Indian East Punjab's water passing through Pakistan? And that would pass through all 2,000 kilometers right into the heart of the country and then go into the run of Kutch. Whereas this LBOD water was being just dumped at the mouth of run of Kutch. Nobody lives there. But the reality was that there was too much thing, because perhaps, I'm not saying I'm sure, perhaps a contractor wanted to change of design so that he could make some money. So these kind of blunders have been made, and now invariably every year, literally thousands of people, whenever there is little rain, thousands of people have to leave their homes because the natural drainage, after borrowing, the natural drainage has been blocked. So it is, and this is the same story on the right bank as well. So I think unless farmers at the policy level, unless farmers identify these mega blunders, I'm afraid we will continue to suffer those issues. So that is why I agitate when a drainage project goes wrong, it is the province of Sindh that's going to pay.
But you were saying, you did speak about the LBOD, except did in the past make a mention of the right bank as well. What has happened on the right bank that is quite similar to what has happened on the left bank?
Well, if you study the topography of Pakistan and particularly Sindh, the right bank, on the right bank side, you have got these mountains. So river passes just with these mountains. So there is a natural lake in Dadu district, which is a freshwater lake, Manchar. What they did in RBOD, right bank outfall drain project, they dumped this drainage effluent into this fresh water. And I remember one particular farmer, I think Nisar Afandi, like 30 years ago, the gentleman, the only lonely farmer, he was agitating that you people, he was agitating against WABDA, that you are going to kill people by executing this project with this design. And Mr. Afandi was an industrialist, he was an agriculture, an enlightened person. Even he gave a briefing to the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in 1998. Nobody listened to him. And what we saw in 2022 that even Chief Minister's home constituency, they were drowned. Of course, these were two heavy rains. There's no doubt about that. But all this devastation was caused by unnatural alignment. What I say, unnatural alignment. And when UN Secretary General was shown the area from helicopter, USAID administrator, she was shown this area from helicopter. Obviously, it was a sea of water, fresh water, dotted by small villages. But these international people, they didn't know. Of course, it's the rainwater, but since we had blocked natural drainage, so it is these bad infrastructure project planning that is drowning us, and now we are trying to sell it as a climate change damage.
Now let's speak about fixing the drainage system itself. Again, you propose something along the lines of inviting private investment. Why do you think fixing the drainage system is so indispensable? Do you find it, having some kind of a correlation with Pakistan's food security as well?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, if statistics say that 15 million acres of Pakistan's 40 million acre area is suffering from waterlogging and salinity, I mean, so obviously it's affecting your bottom line of producing enough food for your people. So there is a direct link. And can you believe waterlogging and salinity is the improper use of both soil and fresh water? I mean, can you believe in this day and age, you are wasting your soil, your life supporting system, and fresh water? So obviously there is a clear link between soil degradation, waterlogging, salinity, and food production capacity. So in order to fix this problem and to avoid the vested interests, what I say in our local language, kancha-based planning. So if you have to avoid, you have to bring in what I say, again, private investors, helped by farmers, so that some sensible sort of planning takes place. So at least over the next 20, 30 years, we can expect some different future.
All right, now let me pick your brains on something that you've written on. And this is basically your criticism of the banker, as well as middleman-led approach when it comes to agri-financing. If you're critical of both these approaches which so far exist in the market, what are you then exactly proposing as an alternative to that?
Well, I mean, to me, the banker in general and the agri-banker in particular, to me, the agri-banker is a chauffeur with a 6-digit salary, but who doesn't know how to drive. So when your driver doesn't know how to drive, he will tell you that irrespective whether your car is a brand new car, he will tell you there are so many problems with the car that he should not drive. The truth is, he doesn't know how to drive. And just simply to explain my argument, since agricultural land is not taxed in Pakistan, so a medium quality land in Punjab's value is like 5 million rupees an acre. And if that is a special value land, which is like close to GT Road, the value could be like 50 million rupees. So in order to extend agriculture financing, all a banker needs to know 3 things, not 4. What I say, social and business reputation of the farmer. Number 2, quality of the collateral. And the quality of collateral, I'm telling, it's a far more, land in Pakistan is far more expensive than in the United States or in Canada. So the quality of collateral is that it can be from 5 million to 50 million rupees an acre. And the third thing, to extend a loan is needed quality of business plan. Banker just needs to know these 3 things: social and business reputation of the farmer, quality of collateral, quality of business plan. Since either system doesn't allow the banker to go into this thorough detail, or he doesn't have capacity, so what you find that a vast number of farmers, they have to rely on private money lenders. And by the way, I'm their admirer, because at least they are giving a sort of service. So despite having tens of millions of rupees worth of assets to each farmer, banks simply don't extend enough amount of capital to farmers, which is we have just rhetoric. It's so important. So what I mean to say that government should simply stop looking at the bankers for extending agri-finance. It should be as liberal as possible. In fact, my philosophy is what I call the stringently liberal. This is my philosophy as far as extending agri-credit is concerned, is stringently liberal. Once you assess your prospective client, you should be extremely stringent. But once you are satisfied with its data, you should be liberal in financing. So in order to extend liberal financing, there has to be other options other than banking. And you would be surprised to know our region, particularly our province of Sindh, like we had a peer-to-peer lending 150 years ago. And now this peer-to-peer lending is tech-based and it has reached all over the world. So I think solution lies again, one of the solutions lies again going to peer-to-peer lending. And you might be surprised to know that we had a policy instrument last year by federal government. If you like, I can explain it to you to formalize peer-to-peer lending. And sadly to say, it's very disappointing. It doesn't work.
So could you briefly just walk us through like what policy has it come up with, and let's speak about there's peer-to-peer lending that takes place all over the world. It's been ongoing in the province of Sindh as well. But how could it be done differently, which also comes at a benefit of the farmer itself? Because for a long time there are a lot of middlemen that you've also criticized. How would it be different from the way that the middlemen actually do it?
Well, first, let me explain that last year, government issued an SRO, Statutory Regulatory Order 436. And that basically allowed that their peer-to-peer lending would be allowed, and a person maximum can be funded 1 million rupees, and that has to be funded at least by 2 lenders or 2 investors. So, which showed that no individual can invest more than 500,000 rupees. I mean, if this is the policy, this is not helping that particular new line of business, but actually killing it. So, had it really been what is because you would find private money lenders in the province of Sindh, and to some extent in different form in Punjab as well, where I've also worked with farmers. An individual would be funding like hundreds of millions of rupees without formal paperwork. So what actually government should have come up, they should have allowed something that people are already doing it. They are not selling drugs, they are helping farmers. So if that has been formalized, there would have been more competition in market. And even I would suggest that even expat Pakistanis should have been allowed to invest in this kind of. But what actually they did, I think they put it further beneath the surface, I would say.
Now let's speak about taxation within the agricultural sector. The elephant in the room. We all know it. Farmers just love avoiding and evading taxation itself. But you've been a proponent of levying taxes on the agricultural sector itself. How would you then go ahead and suggest some way of levying taxes which are more transparent and also allow farmers an opportunity to contribute to the economy and to the national kitty as well?
Well, there's no denying of the fact that we as Pakistan have got one of the lowest tax GDP ratios in the world. Our manufacturing is overwhelmingly taxed. And given the domestic and international debt we have, I think if Pakistan has to prosper, agriculture and particularly the at least 4-5% large holding farmers, and they actually I believe control like over 40% of the farmland. at least those 4-5% of the farmers should be taxed, and why not? And particularly this Russia-Ukraine war, I mean, has a tremendous amount of money, particularly farmers growing grain, wheat, and rice. They have made tons of money. So I think it's fair that they should be paying taxes. But it's not only farmers who avoid paying taxes. Everybody, nobody wants to pay tax. I mean, but if that is made, I believe the tech-based, satellite-based, the tax collection is possible, and that will also help farmers. They would be in a better position to advocate for their own sector. This is privately, I say to many of my friends that if you come up advocating for taxing agriculture policies, you would be better advocating for your own sector. So I think this is also in the interest of agriculture that they should be at least coughing up some tax, particularly larger farmers.
All right, now let's speak about the startup landscape. You know, in one of your write-ups, you gave example of Bengaluru, which invited over 13 billion US dollars worth of funding, compared to Pakistan, which only invited or was able to attract somewhere around 350 million US dollars worth of investment or funding in their startup landscape. And if I'm probably getting my facts correctly, this was for the year of 2022 or 2021.
I think it was 2021, and this is $350 million investment in Pakistani startups. This was the best of the time, and I believe currently it has almost fully dried up.
Now, let's speak about the agri-industry itself. Do you think there's enough investment or there's enough resource available to sort of, redirect some of that capital towards that very sector?
Well, there's no denying of the fact that at least for the agriculture of Pakistan, at least enabling capitalism doesn't exist. So both the sector, its basic production as well as value addition in the form of processing needs investment. And obviously, when we have got one of the lowest saving rates in the world, so we have to be creative. And when I say we, I mean policymakers. Obviously, this is not a question of an individual person, but the world has got enough capital. There's a lot of competition to attract capital. So again, if we are smart, if we are sincere, if we have sensible policies, we can attract capital. Pakistan, because irrigated agriculture is a semi-industrial agriculture. It's capital intensive. It's not a rain-fed agriculture. So investment is required both for basic production as well as value addition. But it requires a vision on part of government, and let's hope this SIFC delivers on that front. Coming to Bengaluru, I mean, Indian South Karnataka, I mean, it's a Silicon Valley in our neighborhood. So obviously, we can't think of competing with them, but we just pray that if the politics of the region allows this kind of collaboration, so that we can also benefit from their expertise, from their market. Hopefully sometime, I don't know whether in your and mine life, even investment from our neighbor as well, because we have to live here.
Let me probably speak about or present a devil's advocate or a case from the perspective of a venture capital. I have the money, I want to come and invest in probably, say Pakistan's agricultural sector. But the problem is, if I'm not going to find the right kind of skill set, I'm not going to find the kind of startups that should be interested in doing that kind of business. Why should I want to go ahead and bring my money and say, go ahead and take my money and probably invest in that business? Why would I want to really do that?
Well, I mean, there can be two responses to this particular question. One is general Pakistan, and the second one would be very personal to me. because I myself, I'm working on a business idea for almost a quarter a century. So, and I do not want make too much of a pitch for my own investment. But I think coming generally to Pakistan, because 240 million people, it's quite a vast market. And when the world is coming up with the climate finance and concessionary finance, Pakistan is not a small country, and it's quite a big market. So, coming to your question's general response, I think as an investor, one is right to expect better working conditions from the Pakistani rulers and policymakers. That's right. And particularly, like, why should somebody invest in Pakistan's agriculture or in societies like Pakistan's agriculture? I think, given the challenge of climate change, poverty, and particularly the income enhancement part of this poverty quandary, I think there can be better business model, which can be tech-based, not charity, pure business models, where a case can be made that you can make a good money while serving people in their livelihood needs.
This place.
If you ask, I can explain a little bit, but I don't want to pitch myself.
No, I don't want you to pitch yourself, but where do you see the role of the universities in this? Can they actually make some contribution? We definitely have incubation centers for startups, but can universities really make a difference over there?
Well, barring I think one or two universities in Pakistan, rest of the universities I think are just large scale tuition centers in Pakistan. That's as simple as that, and that's a very sad story.
I said, what are these two universities?
But they are just glorified tuition centers. They are not creating knowledge. So and particularly as far as universities, including agricultural universities of Pakistan, I think the situation even is more sorrier than general universities. So universities are the place where knowledge frontiers are expanded. But the reality is that it doesn't happen in Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan's two premier educational institutions, IBA, Karachi, LUMS, they don't have, I believe, agricultural education programs. There are government education, government technical agriculture universities, but problem with them is that they are too technical, means the business aspect is not there, the policy aspect is not there. This is where they need to come up with the new knowledge. So I think I would not bet too much on current state of agricultural universities in Pakistan.
All right, now let's probably touch on our last question, and this is about the food stamps. You cited the example of the United States Department of Agriculture, which offered somewhere around $87 billion worth of food stamps. Why are you asking for a similar measure for farming households in Pakistan? Aren't they really self-sufficient? Because at the end of the day, they are actually providing, the food source to the entire nation.
Well, I mean, this $87 billion USDA or US government providing as a food stamp is just one part of the story. The same US government is extending a $49 billion as fiscal transfers to farmers. And these are basically the two sides of same coin. They are basically helping farmers as well as helping the poorest of their populations. So this is basically a targeted subsidy. So this is what I'm advocating. Rather than government suppressing agricultural produce prices in Pakistan, government should help market stabilize the market prices without suppressing it, while at the same time extending targeted assistance to poorest of the households. But you know what happened? Even today's Dawn, the Pakistan's #1 newspaper, the business page, is a news is complaining that onion prices have risen too high because what it calls higher exports. So maybe government would panic and just exports would just be stopped. So this is no way of helping agriculture or the farmers. So what I mean to say that Pakistan or any of the developing world, the problems are not unique. The world, the developed countries have faced these problems maybe many decades back. They came up with sensible solutions. One of them option is this US model, USDA's model of extending food stamps, which helps both farmers as well as poorest of the household. And by the way, this was designed in 1932-33 during the days of depression.
Let me just sort of, before I wrap this up, pick your brains. You want this intervention to be, openly blanket, or you want this to be, specifically targeted to small farmers?
No. As far as procurement is concerned, because
the food stamps.
No, of course. The food support, not only farmers, both rural poor as well as urban poor. So it has to be targeted. It has to be, because, I believe I'm a believer of the market, but as far as food is concerned, food of the basic food should not be left at the mercy of market. So here the state has a responsibility without suppressing of food that producer produces. So it should be targeted both towards the rural poor as well as urban poor.
Mr. Aijaz, thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Many thanks. I feel grateful to you.
Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. Our team works very hard to make this work possible, and it would mean the world to us if you could like and share our content. And if you'd like to stay informed on our upcoming podcasts and other work, please hit the bell icon.